2019, and there's gonna be a rebel faction, and we're gonna go through the scary zombie part of town. It's Half-Life 2 meets Up, minus the gravity gun, the robot, and the flying house. So pretty much all the fun parts, that's gone. You stupid idiot dog company, go back to making doggy bones or some shit. But then I play it again, and I go, wait a minute, and I make that exact noise. Then I realize, this game is pretty good actually. See? Oh, Michael, this is a parable that I have to go to work in this office. Now watch this. Exactly. Last of Us sucks? Exactly. Neil Drunkman's famous quote is, simple story, complex characters. Basically what he's saying is the complete opposite approach of Kingdom Hearts. What makes The Last of Us such a landmark in video game history is that it is maybe the first video game where people act and talk like people. In most video games, people have this very stodgy, formal way of talking to each other, where one character says their sentences, then your turn, your character says their sentences, and it just goes back and forth, perfectly, without error.
Ethan, can you please help me?
I'm coming.
But you're already there. When people actually talk to each other, the tempo of the conversation is very sporadic. We interrupt each other.
And eventually it's gonna blow up in your face.
We talk over each other. We respond non-verbally. Sometimes we don't respond at all because we weren't paying attention.
Can we please just get on with it? Here. Let's get on with it.
Right in its opening sequence, The Last of Us slams you with one of the most devastating scenes I've ever seen in a video game, and it's about two characters you don't even know yet. Compare this to the part of Devil May Cry 4 where Dante loses Trish.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Typically, someone dying is not supposed to be really funny like how it is in video games. You have the scene where Tess is laying out her dying wish on Joel. She leans in and really plays up that desperation. It's total self-delusion. But Tess wants to go out thinking she was the hero, that her sacrifice saved the world. And it's telling of not only their relationship, but Joel as well, that she has to pull out the big guns and really guilt trip him into taking up her quest. The reason why Last of Us is able to execute such tricky scenes is because it really is about us. This game is all about dissecting what it means to be human. When it begins, Joel is nearly identical to the clickers that plague the landscape. He is an ugly, hopeless man going through the motions and killing indiscriminately with complete emotional detachment. He doesn't even like video games.
I was never a big fan of these things.
What a fucking sicko. When Tommy gives him a photo of his daughter, what does he do?
I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm good.
To aliens playing this game, they're going, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? But to us, people, we get it. Time and time again, we see Joel compartmentalize traumatic events, and when Ellie tries to talk about them, he shuts that shit down. He says, nope, we're not talking about Tess, we're not talking about Henry, we're not talking about Sarah, we're not talking about Jeff Goldblum. Yet at the same time, very early into the game, you see him starting to slip back into that father role, and he's still wearing the watch that his daughter gave him. That intrigue of reading faces and mannerisms and trying to psychoanalyze characters is something I associate with the great films like Godfather or The Shining. It's a form of storytelling I never thought video games would be able to achieve. With Uncharted, Naughty Dog toyed around with this story structure of exploring levels with your AI companion.
Look, Sully, your first car.
Oh, man. That's a 1927 Auburn.
That back and forth dialogue feels so much more natural when it's them reacting to things that you can see and experience with them. Last of Us is a very atmospheric game, full of incredible sights and sounds, but to me, the boundary-pushing element is its dedication to characters over plot. This approach has influenced many of the best games of last generation, like Uncharted 4, Spider-Man, God of War, and even Red Dead Redemption 2. A story that you see repeatedly in the background of this game is how when people show their humanity, when they finally let their guard down and do the right thing, their reward is death. This is an idea cemented into every human being in this game. It's something that Joel understands better than anyone, and yet in the right circumstance, even he says, fuck it.
No matter how hard you try, I guess you can't escape your past.
You ain't gonna make it.
When I first reviewed Uncharted 4 back in 2016, I said, do you know that even I am wrong sometimes? I then proceeded to be wrong about Uncharted 4, and what this proves is that I am actually never wrong. Uncharted 4 is one of the best games ever made. Don't even try to argue otherwise. Remember, I can never be wrong, but back then, I was wrong, and I'm gonna prove it. In my old review, I said Uncharted 4 has the most boring climbing ever. This is more true for the first 3 Uncharted games. In those games, the climbing is very stiff and mostly there so that the player can spend time looking at the pretty graphics. Uncharted 4's climbing is faster and much more satisfying in its presentation. When you land on a wooden floor, you hear the thud reverberate because there's nothing underneath it. Nathan Drake has all these unique animations depending on what he's actually climbing on. I mean, look at this. Boom, unique animation. Now watch some dudes. Oh, what he did? He said, womma womma. You can drop way down onto a dude's head and say bop. Eventually you get this tool which lets you hook into walls, you rappel down ropes. When you're in a precarious spot, the camera really emphasizes it and makes you think, oh yeah, I'm gonna die. The huge leaps feel so weighty and satisfying. Oh. And then there's the incredible clock tower sequence where you're jumping across moving gears and sliding through them. Don't get me wrong, the climbing is the weakest aspect of this game, but it's impressive how much love went into the weakest part of the game. What's cool about Uncharted 4 is that traversal is more than just climbing.
Bingo. Now we're in business.
In my old review, I said, put a goddamn grappling hook in every game from now on. Today, it is a legal requirement that every video game has to have a grappling hook. You're welcome. By combining this with the sliding mechanics, you get much more dynamic platforming than we've ever seen with this franchise.
Whoa! Made it.
There's also scuba diving. You drive a boat and a Jeep, and what's really messed up is how good the handling on the Jeep is. Kojima Productions has some of the most talented game developers in the industry, and even they were struggling with vehicle collision in Death Stranding. The terrain in Uncharted is similarly lopsided and hilly, and yet the Jeep can handle everything you throw at it. Rickety little bridges, sudden drop-offs, food stands, other Jeeps, roaring currents, large boulders. Somehow this rental Jeep can do it all. Death Stranding, the whole game is about using vehicles to deliver packages. Driving is fundamental to its gameplay. Uncharted is a shooter with 2 chapters where you drive a Jeep, and there are details Death Stranding could learn from this game, like how you gain more